In this podcast episode, Emad Mostaque delves into the profound economic and societal shifts anticipated with the rise of artificial intelligence. Mostaque articulates a compelling thesis that challenges current economic paradigms, arguing that AI will fundamentally upend traditional capitalism and render current economic measurements like GDP inadequate. Mostaque introduces his concept of the last economy, a framework for understanding an era where artificial intelligence surpasses human cognitive capabilities and displaces much of human labor and societal roles. Unlike previous economic revolutions that were primarily technological or industrial, this shift is a cognitive transition where AI entities don't just augment human tasks but potentially replace the very functions and decision-making humans once held. He posits that this transition spells the end for the current economic model, which is built around human labor, scarcity, and utility maximization. The last economy demands a reevaluation of economic principles, especially those based on scarcity and equilibrium, asking how capital is distributed, what money means, and what roles, if any, humans will hold in the new economy. A major criticism Mostaque poses is about the inadequacy of GDP as a measure of economic progress in the AI-driven future. He reminds us that Simon Kuznets, the creator of GDP, warned against treating it as the sole gauge of economic health. Yet the world remains fixated on GDP, a metric that captures only material output and ignores critical elements like network effects, economic diversity, and intellectual capital. Mostaque highlights how modern economies increasingly rely on intangible forms of capital, knowledge, networks, and diversity, which current metrics overlook. He advocates for a new set of comprehensive dashboards that incorporate these elements to better measure a society's resilience, creativity, and sustained prosperity, especially in an AI-dominated world. To capture the complex dynamics of modern economics, Mostaque proposes the MIND framework, representing material capital, intelligence, network effects, and diversity. These four capitals interplay multiplicatively rather than additively, meaning each must be cultivated to sustain economic health. For example, a rich material economy without intellectual growth or diverse networks fails when unexpected shocks arise. In this framework, intelligence covers the generative capabilities of humans and increasingly AI systems. Network capital reflects social and professional connections, while diversity ensures adaptability and resilience. Mostaque underscores that historically successful societies, like Singapore, have balanced these capitals, achieving economic stability and social contentment. The conversation traces historical great inversions, from land-based capital through labor and industrial capital to the emerging intelligence inversion. This latest inversion reflects a world where AI and computational power increasingly drive GDP rather than human labor or physical resources. This shift implies that as AI attains near infinite scalability of cognition, human labor's relative value diminishes, what Mostaque provocatively terms humans having negative value compared to AI cognition. This creates systemic instabilities because the social contracts and institutions designed around human labor and capital allocation no longer hold. Drawing on both economic data and social observation, Mostaque examined the decade and a half since the 2008 financial crisis, noting a deteriorating middle class and increasing social stress despite superficially strong GDP and employment numbers. They reflect on how wealth has consolidated in AI-driven corporations requiring fewer workers, hollowing out middle America, and triggering rising unrest and violence. Mostaque interprets this as a symptom of a broken social contract, where economic progress and meaning are no longer guaranteed by traditional employment and capital distribution. Politicization, ideological confusion, and social fragmentation are the growing pains of this seismic shift, exacerbated by inflation, asset bubbles, and limited upward mobility. Mostaque is unambiguous in his assessment that capitalism, at least in its current incarnation, will not survive the AI revolution. He defines capitalism colloquially as the accumulation and deployment of capital through human labor to generate wealth. However, in an AI-driven system, capital, now largely compute and models, does not require human labor, thus breaking the critical feedback loop. This leads to a new capitalist paradigm where AI entities themselves accumulate capital, scale cognitive resources endlessly, and outcompete human enterprises. Mostaque foresees a concentration of wealth and power in those who control compute resources, GPUs, data centers, precipitating a profound rupture in how economies function and how wealth is generated and shared. Given the obsolescence of labor-based capital, Mostaque emphasizes the urgent need to reinvent how money flows through the economy. The current monetary system, largely based on debt created by banks, becomes dysfunctional when a large portion of economic value no longer depends on human employment. Traditional taxation, especially on profits, becomes less effective as AI-powered firms chase scale and cash flow, but not necessarily profits. To address this, Mostaque introduces concepts like universal basic AI, paired with a universal basic income funded by new models of monetary issuance that are human-centric rather than debt-centric. He envisions a system where monetary creation is linked directly to verified humans, potentially mediated by sovereign AI, to guarantee a minimum standard of dignity and purchasing power amid job displacement. The discussion shifts to the human experience amid this transition. Mostaque highlights that many jobs, especially knowledge and white-collar roles, face imminent automation. With AI handling cognitive tasks far more effectively, humans will find their roles diminished or shifted significantly. This creates an identity crisis because, historically, work has provided income, purpose, community, and structure. He warns that unless individuals build new kinds of network capital and embrace AI tools as collaborators, they risk obsolescence. Important for survival, he says, is mastering AI to augment productivity. The psychological challenge is equally profound. People must redefine meaning and progress beyond their jobs and learn to thrive in a fundamentally altered social contract. Mostaque acknowledges the potential for significant social turmoil during this turbulent era. With traditional economic structures failing to support wide swaths of the population, unrest, ranging from strikes and protests to violent upheaval, is expected to intensify. The recent assassination attempts and political extremism serve as grim illustrations. Nonetheless, Mostaque is cautiously optimistic that large-scale violence may be mitigated through smarter governance and universal safety nets, but warns that state actors and capital holders will leverage AI to entrench power. The risk of hyperpolarization, misinformation, and technological manipulation of populations looms large, making leadership and social cohesion critical challenges. Mostaque highlights the explosive rise of digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and token economies as emblematic of the new economic order. These digital capitals represent not only speculative vehicles, but also new ways to channel capital towards societal good, such as funding supercomputers for cancer research or universal AI access, exemplified by his own project Foundation Coin. He stresses that in a world where traditional assets like factories and property decline in value or utility, the attention economy, network-based economic models, and crypto tokens emerge as vital players. Understanding narratives and marginal stories becomes crucial as investors shift from fundamentals to cultural, technological, and social momentum. The conversation turns to the technical and systemic vulnerabilities inherent in widespread AI deployment. Mostaque explains that AI systems share similarities, making them susceptible to coordinated attacks or prompt injections, where small hidden code sequences can cause AI agents to behave maliciously or unpredictably. He highlights research on sleeper agents and jailbreaks that can flip AI behavior, underscoring the fragility and risk of weaponized AI in cyber attacks or misinformation. As AI governs more critical infrastructures, such as power grids or transportation, these vulnerabilities threaten catastrophic outcomes, requiring urgent attention to cybersecurity in AI development. Turning to geopolitics, Mostaque explains how AI is entwined with national competitive advantages. He notes China's aggressive investment in open-source AI and robotics, aiming to address demographic declines with a robot-powered workforce. Meanwhile, the United States retains its edge in innovation, immigration-driven talent, and capital, but faces competition over scarce compute resources. He discusses concerns around AGI and singleton scenarios, where a dominant AI entity gains control, sparking fears of technological monopolies or even conflict. The AI arms race transcends economics into military and strategic domains, with nations racing to control compute power, research breakthroughs, and AI deployment, potentially reshaping global power balances.